Humans were watching Ray-Ban Meta videos, there's a new Wi-Fi man-in-the-middle attack, password managers have a new flaw, and flock cameras are getting punched in the face. What's up, s'mores? I'm Shannon Morse, and welcome back to Snubs on Security, the show where I spill the tea and I share my caffeinated opinions on all things cybersecurity and hacking. Let's get into the news, but first, this video is sponsored by DeleteMe. You can use the code SNUBS, S-N-U-B-S, at joindeleteme.com/morsecode for 20% off your plan when you sign up. More info on that in just a bit. Meta's Ray-Ban smart glasses have been one of the biggest wearable tech hits in the past couple of years. They look like normal Ray-Bans, but inside those frames you've got a camera, a microphone, speakers, and Meta's AI assistant. You can take photos, record video, live stream, or ask Meta AI questions without pulling out your phone. I actually do have a pair that I use for first-person unboxing videos and B-roll. A lot of my fellow creators also have them as well. Now, Meta reportedly sold over 7 million pairs last year alone, which means these things are becoming pretty common out in the wild, but a recent investigation has privacy experts, including myself, a little concerned. According to reporting from Swedish newspapers, contractors working with Meta in Nairobi had access to videos recorded by the glasses as part of their AI training work. This is uncomfy news because those contractors were reviewing footage to label objects in the videos so Meta's AI could learn what it's looking at, and that part's relatively normal, but the problem is that some of the footage reportedly included very private moments, like people undressing, people using the bathroom, screens showing financial information, and other intimate or sensitive situations. In many cases, the wearers didn't even realize the glasses were recording when the footage was captured. But here's a fun fact. This does not mean Meta employees are casually spying on users. For fun, companies use a lot of human reviewers to help train machine learning systems. Humans label the data so the AI can understand what it's seeing, which is also pretty uncomfortable news. And according to Meta's terms of service, the company can share recordings from Meta AI devices with human reviewers for moderation and training purposes. So that brings up a really important point. Most people never read the terms of service, including myself. They just tap accept and start using the device. And suddenly you've got wearable cameras that might be capturing footage everywhere you go. At home, in bathrooms, in offices, around your friends, around strangers. And that footage could potentially end up in training datasets reviewed by people around the world. So this is one of the reasons smart glasses have always triggered a lot of privacy alarm bells. If you remember the original Google Glass days, and hold on, I got something to show ya. If you remember the original Google Glass days, these are original Google Glass. I've kept them all these years. I consider them to be a little museum piece at this point. People started calling wearers glass holes because nobody could tell if they were being recorded. And nowadays, these are not only cameras, but they are also AI-powered wearables too. Some researchers and lawmakers are already asking whether these devices normalize constant surveillance in everyday life. There are even reports that Meta has experimented internally with a feature called name tag, which could potentially use facial recognition to identify people that you are looking at. So that's fun. That's just great. Meanwhile, some developers are already building counter tools. There's actually a new Android app, which is called Nearby Glasses, that scans Bluetooth signals and it alerts you if smart glasses might be nearby. It's not perfect, it can produce false positives, but it does show that people are already thinking about ways to detect wearable surveillance tech in public spaces. As these devices get more popular, my concern will be the surveillance goalpost and whether that keeps moving to make way for surveillance normalcy. Will we look at the problems with Meta Ray-Bans and Flock in 5 years and think, man, we sure did have it easy back in the day in 2026? Or will we actually look at surveillance and think, no, we really need to stop this before it becomes a serious problem? And honestly, I wonder if we've already gotten past that point of no return, and that is very worrisome. That's very scary, and I really hope that we can turn back time a little bit so that we don't have all this surveillance around us constantly. This one's fun because I love learning about Wi-Fi hacks. It's really fun. I mean, that's kind of my background with hacking Hack5 and the Wi-Fi Pineapple. Like, I was around during the introduction of the Wi-Fi Pineapple, and I've been around since then. So AirSnitch is a new Wi-Fi hack that doesn't actually break Wi-Fi encryption the way that older attacks did. Instead, it bypasses a security feature which is called client isolation. Now, if you've ever set up a guest network in your house, maybe for visitors or neighbors, or maybe you set up a smart home network for all your smart home devices, like me, I've done this. The idea is that the devices connected to that network cannot talk directly to each other. So your laptop should not be able to snoop on your phone, your smart TV shouldn't be able to see your work computer, and so on and so forth. The isolation is supposed to keep devices from spying on each other, even if they are connected to the same Wi-Fi. But researchers presenting at the Network and Distributed Systems Security Symposium this year discovered a way to bypass that protection entirely. They called this attack the AirSnitch. Now, instead of targeting encryption like older Wi-Fi hacks did, AirSnitch exploits weaknesses deep in the lowest layers of the networking stack. So now we're getting into the OSI model. That includes layer 1 and layer 2, the physical radio signals and how devices identify themselves on the network. Now, what the researchers discovered is that Wi-Fi access points can get confused about which device is actually associated with which network port. So by spoofing a device's MAC address and manipulating how the router maps devices internally, an attacker could trick the network into redirecting another user's traffic through the attacker's device. At that point, the attacker essentially becomes a man in the middle, which means they can intercept data moving between the victim and the router. Now, what can somebody actually do with that? Well, if you followed my time back at Hack5 with the Wi-Fi Pineapples, which are so delicious, you know that there's a lot that they can do. An attacker could steal authentication cookies, they could perform DNS cache poisoning, they could monitor browsing activity, they could inject malicious data into network traffic, and if any websites or services are transmitting data without HTTPS encryption, the attacker could potentially see passwords, payment details, or other sensitive information. Now, luckily, AirSnitch is not an easy attack. The attacker already needs some level of access to the Wi-Fi network infrastructure, so that might mean being connected to the same network, or sometimes a related network that shares the same access point hardware. So this is not something that random hackers on the internet could pull off remotely, but Wi-Fi networks, including even modern WPA2 and 3 networks, were not designed with perfect internal trust, as we can see. We have relied heavily on router features like client isolation to separate devices, and AirSnitch shows that those protections can sometimes still have vulnerabilities. They tested this attack against routers from Netgear, ASUS, Cisco, D-Link, Ubiquiti, and a lot of other ones, and every single tested device was vulnerable to at least one variation of the attack. So what can we do as consumers? Well, first, remember that HTTPS encryption still protects most modern web traffic. It's like the lowest of the low-hanging fruit when it comes to things that you should look for in security. Even if somebody intercepts the connection, the contents are usually encrypted. Second, be cautious on public Wi-Fi networks. I say this time and time again, and I hate it when people on like Threads or Twitter, yes, I still call it Twitter, say, it's fine to use a public Wi-Fi network. You'll be fine. It's fine until it's not, okay? It's fine until it's not. Just be cautious on public Wi-Fi networks, especially ones run by organizations that you do not control. Free hotel Wi-Fi, airport Wi-Fi, coffee shops, events, wherever. If you don't control that network, you don't have a surefire way of knowing if it's indeed secure. And third, if you are dealing with sensitive work for financial data, using a trusted VPN or a cellular hotspot can reduce the exposure to local network attacks. Now, if someone is able to see your data via a vulnerable Wi-Fi flaw, that's a pretty serious problem. But your data can also be collected by shady websites called data brokers. There are hundreds of data brokers, and opting out of each and every single one manually can be incredibly time-consuming as a task. Data broker sites collect and sell personal information like your name, your home address, your phone number, and even family details, and that info can end up in the hands of scammers or anybody else who feels like creeping on you. And since I don't have the time to check those sites over and over again for my own data, I entrust trust DeleteMe to do the job for me. Now, DeleteMe goes through those data broker sites, they search for your data, and they send the opt-out requests and follow-ups for you. They remove that info from the data broker sites. The best part, in my opinion, is once you set up your account, they just keep on working away at it, which means that you have one simple task to do to set up a long-term privacy fix. In my most recent privacy report, DeleteMe reviewed over 23,000 potential matches. Maybe the first name was the same or the phone number looked similar, whatever it might have been. They found 10 to remove, and they saved me over 300 hours total between searching and sending removal requests. DeleteMe is also great about constantly looking for new data brokers to check because new ones are popping up all the time. DeleteMe is one of the tools that cybersecurity professionals have recommended to me years ago, and now I recommend it too because I'm a real-life customer of DeleteMe. I also have a coupon code that you can use for any of their plans. Go over to joindeleteme.com/Morse code, use the coupon code SNUBS, that's SNUBS, for 20% off. That's a big savings for a product that keeps on working for you long term. Again, that's joindeleteme.com/Morse code, coupon code SNUBS for 20% off. Thank you so much to DeleteMe for sponsoring this video and for being a company that I have been a customer of for almost a decade. For years, password managers have marketed their products as zero knowledge or no knowledge. The basic promise here is your vault is encrypted in such a way that not even the password manager company could read it. So even if their servers got hacked, your passwords, credit cards, your notes, and other secrets are supposedly still safe. Well, according to new academic research, that promise is not always true. Researchers took a close look at several major password managers, including Bitwarden, Dashlane, LastPass, which I don't recommend, and they found that in certain situations, a compromised or malicious server could potentially steal vault data, weaken encryption protections, or trick client apps into handing over secrets. Now, I want to be very clear here. The researchers are not saying that password managers are useless, and neither am I. They're saying that the "we can never access your vault" claims falls apart in some real-world edge cases. Edge cases, not every case. Now, a lot of those edge cases involve features that people actually like to use, like account recovery, shared vaults, family and business groups, and support for older legacy versions of apps. That's because once you start adding on those features like recovery or sharing, the client app doesn't properly authenticate certain keys or settings sent by the server. That means if an attacker fully compromised the provider's server, they may be able to swap in their own cryptographic keys, mess with recovery settings, or downgrade protections in ways that let them recover vault contents. The researchers also found cases where a malicious server could reduce the number of password hashing iterations from something like hundreds of thousands down to basically nothing, making it dramatically easier to brute force a user's master password after the fact. Now, that is a huge deal because those extra hashing rounds are one of the big things standing between a stolen vault and an attacker cracking it offline. They also did some attacks involving shared items and vaults where a malicious server could potentially read or even modify shared passwords or notes by manipulating how sharing keys are handled. Now, please know that I do not think the lesson here is to stop using password managers. Please do not go back to storing your passwords in your Notes app because that is not the move. Password managers are still way better than password reuse. But this research does mean that we should be more suspicious about the way that these companies market their products. Zero knowledge ain't necessarily going to be zero knowledge. If the server can still influence the keys, the recovery flow, the sharing flow, or the security settings that the client accepts, then the provider may not be as blind to your data as the marketing suggests. So, password managers, still useful, still important, and if you use one, make sure you set up a strong master password, use MFA if possible, keep apps updated, and be cautious before turning on things like shared vaults or recovery features. And now for some TLDR news. So, OpenClaw just avoid has a bunch of security issues. CVE 2026-25253 opened the door to one-click token theft and gateway compromise from a malicious link. There's another flaw coined clawjacked that can brute force the password, register as a trusted device, and take over the AI agent. Also, some of the skills in OpenClaw are actually info stealers and malware, not to mention OpenClaw instances exposed on the public internet. So if you're experimenting with tools like OpenClaw, do not run them on your daily driver with your real accounts and your whole digital life attached. Put them in an isolated environment, use separate credentials, audit every integration, and treat every community skill like it's untrusted code, or just don't use it. People are straight up destroying flock surveillance cameras across the United States. Now, I want to be very clear, I do not condone this behavior, and this is considered destruction of property, and you can get in very big trouble. So if you're not familiar, Flock makes AI-powered license plate readers and surveillance cameras that cities install on roads and neighborhoods. The cameras automatically scan vehicles, track plates, and they feed that data into law enforcement databases. They have been under fire though because the cameras are incredibly vulnerable to security and privacy issues. They are pointed at places like playgrounds, and they were often installed without any votes. But somebody did make this public map showing where all these cameras are. It's at deflock.org, and people are just straight up smashing them. People are not happy with that 1984-esque surveillance that is happening in their neighborhoods, and to be honest, I don't blame them. Some police departments are trying to keep the camera location secret, but people can still figure it out because they can do some fox hunting for Wi-Fi networks. In multiple cities across the country, people have been cutting down the cameras, smashing them, or sabotaging the poles that they are mounted on. Examples include Oregon, where 6 cameras were cut down and destroyed, California and Illinois, where cameras were smashed or sabotaged, Kentucky, where police said once some camera locations became public, they were destroyed almost immediately. One dude in Virginia destroyed 13 cameras. He used vice grips to disassemble the 2-piece mounting poles. My favorite is in Springfield and Eugene, Oregon, where 6 cameras were cut down. A sticker was left and the note says, "Haha, get wrecked, you surveilling f***s." Oh my god. So funny. But don't do it. This is very bad. Don't destroy property, okay? This isn't a coordinated attack on Flock, it's just regular people who are not accepting of surveillance systems. Some US lawmakers are proposing a new bill that would ban something called surveillance pricing. I have also seen this coined as dynamic pricing in grocery stores. The concern is that new technology inside stores could allow companies to change prices dynamically based on data about shoppers or based on facial recognition. The legislation is called Stop Price Gouging in Grocery Stores Act of 2026. It would require stores to disclose if they are using facial recognition, and it would ban electronic shelf labels in large grocery stores. Now, electronic shelf labels are not necessarily bad. They are often used just to update prices remotely instead of sending employees around the entire store with a little pricing pew-pew. Now, if 2 people walk into the same store and they buy the same item, they should be paying the same price. It shouldn't change based on their demographics, their history of purchases, etc., like unless you have a coupon. It's a really creepy way how AI, data collection, and pricing algorithms are starting to potentially affect your groceries. And TLDR, just a heads up, Instagram is getting rid of end-to-end encryption in DMs. If you have been using your DMs for anything crucial, I would recommend switching to a legitimate messaging service that does offer end-to-end encryption, like Signal. I'll be back next month with another Snubs on security. Thank you so much again to DeleteMe for sponsoring this video, and to my viewers for supporting security content here on YouTube. I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all.